All right, today we're talking about why you're killing your own sales calls and what you need to do about it. My guest today is Collin Stewart. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and you know that if you've listened before, every week we have smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies on this show. We've had Netflix and Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, Activation Blizzard, Lending Tree. Check out the archives. Lots of great episodes for you to check out. And before we get into this episode is brought to you by Rise 25, where we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast. We're the easy button for any company to launch and run the podcast. We do three things: strategy, accountability, and full execution. We'll even send gifts on your behalf if that's what you want to do. And so go to our website. You can learn more, rise25.com, or email our team at support@rise25.com. And my guest today is a podcaster. It's gotten over 400 episodes, which is really exciting. That is in the rarefied air top 1% of all the podcasters out there. And his name is Collin Stewart. He's the co-founder and CEO of Predictable Revenue. It's based in Vancouver, Canada. He co-founded Voltage CRM back in 2012 and later Predictable Revenue a couple years later, focusing on helping companies to build outbound sales development teams. And so we're going to talk a bit about how to get really good at sales in today's day and age. But I always love to start getting to know our guests a little bit about what they were like as a kid. And Collin, you said that as a kid, you're basically slave labor as a young kid. You started with helping neighbors with garage sales, and then you basically indentured servitude, decided to go start working in a warehouse at a young age. So tell me a little bit about young Collin, what you were like. You were raring to go. Like, forget about soccer balls. I'm going to go to work.
Yeah, I remember buying it was the library. Our library used to have a book fair every year, and you would have to, get a little money from your parents. And I remember buying a Lamborghini Countach picture. Obviously not a Lamborghini Countach. That'd be a pretty baller.
Like, you saved a lot from those garage sales.
I was a wealthy 6-year-old, let me tell you, John.
Yes. Those Countaches, man, those are hot cars.
Very hot cars. And I remember having I bought the poster, it hung in my bedroom. And I remember telling my dad, I wanted to get one, and him explaining to me exactly how much it cost. And it was like an unfathomable amount of money. And I was like, okay, he's like, if you want one, you can do it, but you just have to work really hard. And I think that stuck with me. And so I had a paper route. I would help out at garage sales. I refereed hockey, good Canadian kid. And then at 12, I think it was 12. I think because there was a legal limit to work, but you could start at 12 if it was a family friend. And my neighbor owned a textiles warehouse, and they had a factory outlet there. So they hired me as an idiot 12-year-old to fold laundry and stock shelves for them. And I'm sure I was terrible at it. But I did that. That was my Sundays thing. Saturdays was hockey. Fridays and Thursdays was the paper route. And yeah, I just kept going from there.
My kids play baseball and soccer, and there's a sign at the baseball field about to the parents to remind them not to yell at the referees, because the referees are kids, and they're there making whatever $15 an hour or something like that. So is the reason that you got good at sales because you were refereeing hockey games getting yelled at by parents?
I don't know if it was the reason I got good, but it certainly helped build confidence. There was one really lippy coach in the league, and I made him, he was being a real asshole one game, and I made him get out on the ice and take a knee and sit and take a knee next to me on the ice. I was
really?
like, Marty, I can kick you out, or you can come take a knee with me on the ice. Come step down to my level. And he got down on his knee, and we were knee to knee, and had a chat, and and send him back on the bench. It was
that's amazing.
A weird thing for a 13-year-old to be able to command an adult.
Yeah, it is. I hope your parents took a picture of that. That would be an awesome picture for you to have now.
I'm old enough that there were
It was
cameras, but
before.
they were like film
Yeah.
cameras,
Yeah.
you know.
It was like, we're not wasting a frame on that. We're not
Totally.
wasting
That's going
back
to
then.
cost me like $12 to get developed. So
To
you can
develop. Yeah.
also like I was refereeing hockey. I felt like I
Yeah.
was out there playing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if my parents were like not paying attention at all,
But
you know,
it is
because like
funny
I wouldn't
though.
be.
It is funny though. You look back on your childhood and you mentioned that moment in time
Mhm.
as being impactful, like having an impact to this day on your career development and your confidence.
Mhm. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think still have the record for like tossing out the most fans in a particular rink because I
How,
basically tossed. I went from here to here. You all can leave, and then I went and ran the clock until they left. So like ran the game clock.
oh,
So
you
like your kid's
did.
game is going to be over. I went and sat in the box. Is like I'm getting paid either way. You all need to leave, or like I'm still going to get my $20.
Well, that
And
answers my question. I was going to be like, how do you throw out fans? Or like, we're not leaving, but you just like ran down the clock and said like
yeah,
until
you
you
just go
get.
push the button.
Oh, that's funny. That's
Yeah.
funny. Well, that'll give you some confidence for sure. Um,
Mm.
so you started companies even when you were young. So tell me a little bit about Voltage CRM. Where did that come about?
I'd spent 10 years as a salesperson and I was always into computers. My grandfather was into computers. Like I remember he would always have like a stack of computer magazines at his house and I would always take them home and be reading about like when AMD launched Athlon and I could tell you like the CPU architecture and like why it was different from like the Pentium 1 and why Pentium was different from the 386. All of that information is totally lost now. In my brain, anyway. I'm sure it's out there on the internet.
Mm.
But I was just really into computers. And as the geeky sales guy, that is into computers, I was always pulled into the CRM projects. And so after 10 years of being pulled into CRM projects, I figured, you know what? I can do it better than these Muppets down in San Francisco. Uncle Mark's got nothing on me. And so I decided I'm going to start a CRM company and I'm going to take over Salesforce, which, as you can probably guess or already know, it was an absolute dog shit idea. And
There's the
I
tallest
was,
building in San Francisco is now the Salesforce Tower.
yeah, yeah.
Doing okay. Yeah.
100%. But
But
I
it is
had it.
interesting though. I mean, there has been a proliferation of a lot of different CRM. So yes, Salesforce is a big one. I
Mhm.
actually interviewed the inventor of the first CRM, Ask, which was like back in like early 90s, late 80s, something like that. They started it.
Mhm.
Um, and so there have been more CRMs that are developed in different niches. So tell me a bit about what were some of the challenges in growing that?
I mean, everything was a challenge in growing that because I didn't do any customer development for that. And let me reframe because I did do a ton of customer development. I think I must have interviewed 150 sales leaders and asked them questions, but I was I was stuck on the validate your idea, right? I'd read the lean startup and it said validate your idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I went,
Got it
okay,
right.
cool.
Got the book right behind me here.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
came to speak to our EO chapter, and is coming again in a month, which is really cool. Eric Reese.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so I read that and I went, cool, I got to validate my idea, which means I'm going to go ask people until I find the folks that tell me I'm right, as opposed to going and asking them questions to see what their pains are, to see what problems of theirs I could solve. Because
Mm,
I was thinking, I'm from CRM. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know what the right thing is. I did have a valuable and accurate insight about CRM, which was when it went from something you installed on your computer into the cloud, it ceased being a sales tool for salespeople. It was now a sales management tool.
mm.
And we still called it CRM, but it was a totally different beast. It's not something that's geared for my personal productivity like Word was or Outlook was. This is something for my manager to get their reports and dashboards,
Mm.
which are arguably extremely important. But me as a salesperson, this is a net loss for me.
Because
And
a lot
so
of salespeople they want to update the files and stuff like that. Of course,
it's
now
just
it's
more
gotten
work.
easier. There's a totally different ball game now with Fathom and recordings and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot less. There's
Yeah.
a little bit more admin overhead of like, you got to make sure the prompts are right and make sure the things are going in the right spot
Yeah.
and make sure you trust the information that they're putting in. So there's still overhead, but yes, it's significantly easier than like sending an email to a new prospect in 2012 took 27 clicks and like
And
8-page refreshes.
wow. Wow.
And that's Internet Explorer like 5 or 6.
So
something like that.
slow. So it took forever.
Slow as hell. It took, I
Yeah.
think I timed it once and it was like 3 minutes.
And were you able, is that what you focused on? Was making that part faster?
Yeah, I mean, not initially. The initial was like, I'm going to build a CRM that's optimized kind of for that, but it's going to be a whole CRM, you know?
Hmm.
And we spent a year and a half trying to sell the CRM that was a replacement for Salesforce, but it's going to be more optimized for salespeople productivity.
Mm.
And we had a lot of people, we had a lot of kicks of the can. A lot of people said that it was interesting, but 80% of folks said make it work with Salesforce or we're
You could
not
work
interested.
with Salesforce.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they
And I,
weren't looking for it to replace Salesforce, which is what you thought it would be.
because let's rewind back to 2012. The cloud was still new, right?
Hmm.
They were still the IT admins were still like on-prem
Hmm.
cloud argument.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
not the
Cloud
dominant,
had not won yet.
yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
the dominant business model yet.
Yeah.
Um, and so everybody had just started implementing Salesforce and they're like, I don't want to switch and go to
Mm.
another one. And
Mm.
like, if I'm going to go to this cloud thingy, I'm going to go do it with Salesforce,
The
not
big
with you.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You had one customer in 13 months with Vulture CRM.
Mhm.
You must have felt like quitting at some point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not quitting, but it didn't feel good. I don't know how to spell quit. You know,
Hmm.
it sounds really cheesy, but I'm super dyslexic. No, dyslexic with numbers, not with words. And I can't spell quit. No, I don't give up easily, and I never wanted to quit. I never had that desire. I wanted to figure out the answer to the problem,
Mm.
and it was
And so you
it
pivoted into carb, and was that the answer to the problem?
kind of, yeah, because effectively the answer was like if we go and look at like why was I in the situation I was in, the diagnosis is I wasn't listening to customers or
Mm.
prospects.
Mm.
I had interviewed them with the like aren't I a genius goggles on, and I was only listening to what I wanted to hear.
Mm.
And when I put those down and I started asking people what problems they wanted to solve, what I found were that everybody had these problems. Everybody recognized the insight and the problems. Everybody saw it as well.
Hmm.
But the people who experienced that most frequently were sales development reps, were
Mm.
these people that had a extremely high volume of activity in Salesforce.
Mm.
They felt it the most because it would take 3 minutes to send a single email.
Mm.
And like some, it took 15 minutes to send an email, a single
Mm.
email,
So
one email.
what did your offering become after you started listening to the sales development reps? Did that offering become will help you increase the throughput?
Yeah, effectively. I had at the same time as we were figuring out that, hey, this is voltage is not something that's going to work out. I'd read predictable revenue and I'd started using it to book these meetings for myself.
Hmm.
And I started recognizing that, hey, I think folks that are doing the same thing that I am are probably going to struggle and might benefit from some of the hacks that I've thrown together in order to reach everybody. Because
Hmm.
in order to book all these meetings, like I'm not joking, I booked 150 meetings in a couple of months. And like, that's an extreme number of meetings to do solo,
Hmm.
because cold email worked extremely well back then. But I hacked it all together with a couple of Google scripts or yeah, I think they were called Google App Scripts. It was
Hmm.
basically macros in Google Sheets at the time. And I was really fast at finding folks' email, and I was really fast at copy pasting stuff on LinkedIn.
So
And
probably
then I just,
sending from your main domain,
oh yeah,
which of course people can't do now. You'll get yourself banned by Google.
yeah,
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 exactly,
yeah.
yeah. And so yeah, I janked a whole system together, and then kind of recognized that one, I think sales development teams like might need some help, and then as in the discovery process for that, the folks just started asking me, they're like, hey, how did you reach me? Can I see what you did? And I started showing them and they asked me to start like implementing those systems for them. And so I started building these sales development systems for folks in probably late 2012, early 2013, something like that.
Yeah.
And that basically pulled us into a services business where we were basically doing the product that offering the product that we wanted to build, but as a service, so the
Mm.
Wizard of Oz kind of pay no attention to the man behind the curtain kind of version of the service.
And you went from you grew past $1 million in revenue in 3 months. Was that the service that you did that with, or was that, am I jumping ahead here?
Yeah, so we got the service up to about 1 million in revenue, but that took a year. And then along that year, we built a software product to support that. So instead of the crappy CRM that we're trying to sell, the engineering team said, "Hey, let's build something to support this."
Hmm.
And so we took a year to build that out. And then when we launched it, launched the software. So our team had been using it internally on behalf of customers. And then when we started selling it externally, it just caught on like wildfire. And that's when we went, the software itself went up 0 to 1 million in 3 months.
Wow. And there must have been some big challenges in that period of time when you take something from an internal tool to an external tool and you add that amount of revenue on top of it. Did it break
Yeah,
along the way? Did you, run into unexpected challenges?
everything broke. Yeah. And that's the reason like the software doesn't exist today is we, I think one of the core bad decisions I made back then was my engineering team, my CTO, co-founder, Preston said, "Hey, like the right way to do this is to not build off this janky CRM system that we've been just Frankensteining together as like tests and
Hmm.
things. The right way to do it is to start fresh and like purpose build something for this new startup because it is a new startup. Even though we've got something that kind of works, we should just start fresh." And I went, "No, we need to, you know, we need to get to like feature parity or we need to get to like X so quickly because I just wanted to, I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to lose any momentum. I wanted to get as much revenue as we could as quickly as possible. And I
Hmm.
didn't understand the depth and complexity of what I was saying no to. Like my co-founder was very good at articulating it. And I see my previous comments wasn't very good at listening back then. And so I didn't do any listening. And ultimately, when we scaled 0 to 1 million in 3 months, it put so much stress on the servers that basically, like we were Ruby on Rails. And if any technical folks are listening, our active record just couldn't keep up. And like it just got swamped. And so you would go to click send to send an email, and it would take 2 weeks for it to work its way all the way through.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
Yeah. And then our
That,
server costs went up because we're like, oh, we'll just try and outmuscle our poor code with money. And so
mhm.
I think our AWS bill, or I think we were Heroku, and then we moved to AWS, and we had these like dedicated instances, and it was like tens of thousands of dollars a month for servers.
Wow. Wow.
I'm like, yeah, it was not good.
I want to ask you, so you said you'd read Predictable Revenue. I read that book,
Hmm.
I don't know, 10 years ago now or something like that. A
Hmm.
great book, based on Aaron's experience with, putting
Salesforce, yeah.
putting Salesforce in place. Ironically, that's kind of like the big bad wolf, the demon that you were fighting against. And then you eventually acquire Predictable Revenue, so you kind of
Hmm.
become CEO of a book company. I'm always curious about how people end up partnering with someone that they admire from afar, like an author of a
Hmm.
book that was so impactful. Like, what
Yeah.
was the initial conversation? Like, did you reach out to him and say, "Hey, just want to let you know I really admire the book," or what was the initial like outreach to him?
Yeah. My buddy James Clift had stopped me in the hallway and is like, "Hey, I know you're trying to do this idiot thing and taking on Salesforce. They just published a book, or one of the guys who worked there published a book outlining like how they grew so quickly. You should probably check it out." I bought the book immediately. I read the book. The guy wrote, like Aaron wrote a book on cold email. And I figured
Yeah.
it'd be rude if I didn't send him a cold email. And
Mhm,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
did.
I think he
And I
might
used,
encourage it in the book. I can't remember, but I thought it said
yeah.
something like that in there. But I'm sure he got a
And
lot of them.
I was already a dirty sales guy. And so I knew how to find folks' email and phone
Yeah.
numbers and all that. And so I sent him an email with a couple of quick questions. I don't remember specifically what they were, but I found all his information. And then I was basically his internet stalker for like 6 months and was building like hacking together these janky little tools, and I kept asking him questions, and I would follow him on webinars, and like I was his internet stalker. I think they call it social selling now, but back then it was called stalking somebody.
It's a nice
um,
term for stalking. Social
totally,
selling.
totally. Not physically stalking him, but like yes, I was absolutely stalking him.
Yeah.
um, and then it just came to a point where he's like, "Hey, we should find a way to work together." And I was like, "What do you mean by that?" And he's like, "I think we should like merge the companies." And so Yeah, that was 2014. Happened around, we finally got the deal done around October. It's 2014, something like
What
that.
time? What year did the book come out?
I think it came out in 2010.
Okay, all right. So it'd been around for 4 years at that point. Yeah. And
Yeah, something,
how
something
did
like
one
that.
plus one equal three? Why do you think merging the companies made sense?
I mean, he had this methodology and this exposure, but he was bottlenecked on time, right?
Mm,
Doesn't matter how much you charge by the hour if your time is still if your revenue, your income is still bottlenecked on your time,
hmm
right? He had no way of decoupling those two things.
mm,
And I think he saw Carb and the things that we're building as a way of helping bootstrap a software company into existence.
mm. And then what did you do? Did you at some point throw out the old system built on Ruby on Rails and build something new, or how you had all these clients that you're running through it?
Yeah, eventually we did, but it was too late. And like
Mm,
we lost our momentum. We lost the like the positive word of mouth. Like the reason Carb went from 0 to 1 million is one, we hit on an extremely valuable pain to solve. And we also hit on something that was extremely painful, right? Like the combination of those two things
hmm
where these salespeople that are making a company money are bottlenecked on a process. And if
hmm
you can fix that bottleneck, it is worth a ton of money to the company. And so every salesperson, every sales leader that had this problem, if they heard that somebody was trying to solve it, they're like demanding intros. Like
mm.
when I first launched the service version of the software, not even the software, I was like, hey, Preston, to my co-founder, I'm like, I'm sorry about this whole CRM thing that nobody bought. My commitment to you before I ask you to write another line of code is I'll find 5 paying customers. I'll do this manually. I've got the process. I think I can handle 5 max. I'll see if I can get them to give me $500 a month just for 1 month, and we'll see if we can do it. I had I had 5 meetings, and I came away with 7 customers.
How's that even possible? Like they signed up
Two,
their buddy down the hall? Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Two
So
of
you
them
know,
called in the meeting. They called their buddy. They're like, "Hey, I've got this
get
guy
in on
here. He
this.
says he can do cold email for $500 a month. Are you in?" And the guy's like, "Hell yeah!" And
So
so
that
it
must have
happened
been like
twice.
finding an oasis in the desert after your 13-month experience of only having one client.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I liken it to pushing a giant rock up a hill, and suddenly it's running downhill, and you're like, I got to keep up to this thing.
Yeah. Obviously today in 2025, it's a totally different animal. There are tools like Instantly, Apollo, ZoomInfo, stuff like that.
Mhm.
What do you say the world is like now as far as cold email? Is it effective still? Is it no longer as effective?
Uh, it's effective still. But the table stakes have gone up. You ever play poker or sit at
Sure.
a casino?
hmm Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you used to play with like nickels and dimes,
Yeah.
with your buddies.
Yeah.
And then you go to the casino, it's $1. It's like 1, 2, no limit.
Yeah.
That was kind of the early days of like when I started playing cold email, it was like 1, 2, no limit. And now it's like the blinds are 50 on 50, 100. You need a significantly larger stack of cash to sit down and play outbound and get value out of it. So there's still lots of companies that are getting tons of value out of it, but it's significantly harder to do.
So you need to be more patient. It takes more time.
Um, you need to be more, I guess, clever and
Mm,
personalized. And like, I don't want to be discouraging and saying, oh, it's impossible for regular folks to do it.
yeah.
It's quite challenging. Like, I
Mm,
work with a lot of startups and help them build their first outbound teams, their first sales teams. And like, when you're a startup, you don't know enough information to craft a really great cold email. And
mm,
it doesn't just come down to writing the message. Like most companies screw it up in building the list because when you think about like what goes into getting a reply, it is the targeting of how you built that list and the signals and the reason you put somebody on that list married to the content that you are sending them. It's those two things working together that creates the real magic,
mm.
right? And I find a lot of companies aren't very intentional about putting those two things together, right? And kind of the messaging should draw the through line through the targeting of like, this is why this account is on the list. This is why this contact is on the list. And this is why this contact should be just roaring to reply to us right now. This is why it's super relevant and very actionable. And it's actually going to help them.
You,
And
you sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, you mentioned earlier social selling, which is a popular buzz term these days. Do you believe in that, or do you believe in continuing email is enough, or does it depend on budget? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends on what you're looking to accomplish. Social selling works, cold email works, the phone works. Going and knocking on doors works. I bet you if you sent homing pigeons to somebody's office, you'd get a reply too. You know,
That'd be pretty
um,
cool, honestly. Like this pigeon showed up on my windowsill. Yeah.
one of my clients a long time ago, he was a door-to-door guy. I think he was selling it was Cintas, like the uniform company.
Okay.
And he would show up. He'd go buy pizzas, and he'd show up at like just before lunchtime, and he'd walk in with like 10 pizza boxes. But he would buy 10 pizzas, and then he'd ask the pizza shop for 20 pizza boxes. So
Mhm.
he'd get 10 full boxes and 10 empty boxes. And then he'd take the empty boxes in and be like, "Hey, pizza delivery from me at Cintas." And then the first one had a note, be like, "Hey, if you take a meeting with me, I've got the pizzas in my truck."
Okay.
So everybody's like, "Hell yeah, pizzas." So I'm sure the
That's
pizza trick
great.
still works,
The
and
pizza
I'm sure
trick, yeah. Sure,
I'm
yeah.
sure door to door still works, but like you got to be creative about it. And
Mm.
I think right now what's happening is AI SDR is everywhere, and everybody thinks it's amazing. But all AI SDR has allowed us to do, like I've looked at a bunch of AI SDR tools. I've tried a few of them. I haven't seen any good ones because they're not the only AI there is writing the emails.
Mm.
The AI is not building the list, is not figuring out who should be in the targeting. The AI is not doing any sort of machine learning or analysis. These are all large language model based AI systems. LLMs aren't great for strategy. They aren't
Mhm.
great for the multi-arm bandits or single arm bandits or Monte Carlo simulations that traditional machine learning is like really, really great at. And so I think what everybody is implying or is thinking is like AI SDR is like an artificial intelligence powered SDR, but it's not. It's an LLM powered SDR, which means regular cold email deliverability stuff coupled with pretty average cold email messaging written by an LLM.
It's
And like,
amazing to me how much people actually don't even when people talk about cold outreach that they talk
mm,
about like where do I get a list and they don't talk about the messaging piece. And that is such an important piece that people just kind of whatever, like put a message in there. And that makes such a
mm,
massive difference, especially today.
totally. And I think the most important piece is the connection. And like today, what's really working is finding that signal, finding the reason why somebody's reaching out, so that instead of sending 10,000, bulk emails, you can send a few hundred really targeted emails. And I'm not a big AI messaging fan or AI, like having AI write the message. I like to write the message myself. I might use AI to write a couple of custom snippets, to write, like like classify your podcast. If I was going to reach out and say, "Hey, really like your, X podcast," I might have AI fill in a word or two here or there,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to
The
have it write the messaging.
The funny thing about those mail merges is like I just got one today that was like a private equity company that said they were reaching out because they had investors in my town that were looking to acquire companies like my company. And my town has 9,000 people in it. It's not that many
Mhm.
people. It's a small town. So like clearly it was just a mail merge and they grabbed it off of LinkedIn, put it in there. Like if it was like Chicago, San Francisco, something like that, that would maybe make sense. But it was
Yeah.
like, it didn't really work.
It seems like they copy and pasted that from like a porn ad that's trying to get you to cheat on your wife and give them like $100 a month or something like that.
That was
Ashley
probably the
Madison
follow
back in the
up.
day.
That was probably the
Yeah.
follow up. Yeah.
Yeah.
The terrifying art of finding customers, a sleep deprived founder's guide to revenue. What inspired writing that book?
Uh, Running a sales development agency for as long as I did, um, where it started was I recognized that a lot of founders were leaving money on the table in that they would we would run all these campaigns for clients where you're prospecting and then you're booking a bunch of meetings and you'd see a customer, like building an outbound team. Like the reason most companies don't make it off the ground with outbound is they don't invest the right amount of time, right? They get mediocre results in the early days and they go, "Yeah, it's not for me. This doesn't work."
Hmm.
And what they should be saying is this hasn't worked yet, or we haven't figured it out yet.
Hmm.
Outbound, when you think about the investment profile, it sucks because you have to invest a lot and you get nothing. And then if you keep testing and tweaking and tuning, eventually you get something, and then you get something extremely scalable. Because like once you've figured it out, once you've cracked the code, then it can be one of the like best costing customer acquisition channels out there. But most companies don't get off the ground with it. And where the book initially came from was I started writing a book called The Four Funnels, which was my frustration out of my frustration of seeing our clients come get these meetings. And we'd spend 6 months, 9 months working with them. They'd get a bunch of meetings and their AEs would go, yeah, there's no project in the next 90 days. So I'm not interested in talking to them.
And is the challenge there that the AE is compensated in that 90-day window, so they don't care about a project that's 180 days from now?
Yeah, it's the AEs didn't want to put the work in, and the company didn't have a great process for tracking all these conversations. Because with cold email, what you're doing is you're basically taking a company that you don't know and you're reaching out to start a connection. And then like to reach out and say, hey, can I sell you some shit? Yeah, sometimes that works, but only if they're like really in pain.
Yeah.
But to reach out and start a relationship and say, hey, I want to get to know you. And to have folks reply back and say, yeah, let's have a chat about it. I'm interested. And then to have your salesperson say, yeah, you know what? You're not far enough down your buyer's journey. I'm not willing to put the work in is a crappy move. And so I found a bunch of companies were wasting money on this. And that if a customer would just, or if a company would just take those meetings, work them, and then put them into their nurture funnel where that AE is working them, once a month, once a quarter, just sending them a light follow up, keeping in touch with them, you get so much more. Like we even saw this when we hired our first SDR. We got nothing for the first 6 months, like 0 deals. And we were the company that had gone 0 to a couple $1 million building our own service. It still took us time to figure out all the variables for us to get our own SDR going. It took us 6 months. Then we got a deal every other month for the next 6 months. So we got 3 deals in the first year. It absolutely did not pay back the costs. But then suddenly at the 12-month mark, we started to get a deal a month. And then we got a deal a month every month. And then we were able to scale that up to every SDR we added in about 3 to 6 months. They were adding a deal every month. Like that customer acquisition channel scales extremely well. And the thing that we did really well was we were reaching out to start a relationship. And then we were able to effectively nurture the relationships with those folks so that when they were ready, when they went from, yeah, I'm thinking about it to, you know what? Yeah, I want to actually buy some outbound, or I want help with outbound. We were the company that had just talked to them, and we had been in contact with them and sharing helpful docs for 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months, whatever it took. And that's really what it took. And that was really this is the thing that people missed was everybody was looking for quick money, easy money, and thinking that, buying sales development team was like buying ads, and it's not. And so I started writing the book to kind of help with that. And then I slowly realized that I didn't love sales development. It wasn't like the thing that I was put on this earth to do. It was something that I was good at. But what I really wanted to do was help founders figure out how to find their first customers, and then how to go from once you've found your first customer, or once you've kind of in that customer development process where I got stuck, how do you draw a line between customer development and closing your first customers? Because I was the dirty sales guy at the co-working space where I worked, and like where I started this company. And all of my friends were engineers. All of my entrepreneur friends were engineers. And they all came to me with like, hey, Collin, how do I sell? How do I find my customers? How do I like get this? And like what everybody was missing there was that you would do all this customer development research. Like even I did it. I interviewed 150 sales leaders, and then I pivoted into carb, and I didn't go back and talk to them. Like if you've got 150 relationships with folks that say they have the problem, don't you think it's a good idea to go back and say, hey, remember that problem you told me about? We're solving it now.
Yeah.
And it seems super obvious, but most founders don't do it.
Yeah. So then is the terrifying art of finding customers, how does it relate to predictable revenue? Is it like the precursor to predictable revenue?
It's kind of the prequel.
Prequel.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It basically helps you go from trying to find your first customers and like strengthening your product market fit in the customer development process to how do you actually close those customers, and how do you basically look at the customer development funnel of going from learning to earning, and then how do you sell? How do you build your first sales team? So kind of light touch on those second 2 pieces, but yeah, that's the line I was trying to draw for folks.
That's great. Well, Collin, this has been great. I want to wrap up with my gratitude question. So I'm a big fan of giving our guests a little bit of space here to shout out any peers, contemporaries, mentors, investors, business partners, anyone in particular that you want to thank for being there with you over the years.
Yeah, I think, you asked this at the beginning, and I had a couple of thoughts. But I think the guy who is most deserving of a shout out right now is my buddy Kenny McKenzie. There's a couple pieces in the book on the market fit process, and it was just something that Kenny and I ended up working together. And everybody has co-founder issues, and like I was probably the root cause of most of the co-founder issues our co-founders had. And so there was a lot of turmoil. And then Kenny came and joined the company, I don't know, like 10 years ago, worked with us for maybe 2 years. It was the first time I felt like I had a positive like relationship with a co-founder. And so Kenny and I have stayed in touch. He's got his own company now, Feedback Machines, but he had a tremendous impact on helping me understand customer development better, helping me, I don't know, figure out how to lead people. And then he and I just always stay in touch and kind of push each other. So we have like a monthly ongoing call where it was just it's half like buddy check in and half like, hey, help me with a work thing.
Yeah.
And so that's a relationship that I cherish.
That's great. That's great. Well, this has been great, Collin. Where can people go to learn more about you and learn more about the book when it comes out?
Yeah, you can find more at terrifyingart.com. If you want to, if you liked me blathering on about sales and customer development and stuff, I write a weekly newsletter called Founders Edition. It's foundersedition.co.
Yes, that's great. All right. Definitely sign up for that. I'm on the list. I was just reading your message from this morning. So it's definitely valuable. You put a lot of content in there. So that's really not one of these newsletters that just kind of like you forget about. You actually put a lot of thought into those newsletters. So good job on that, Collin.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.